thinking about a lot just before. I don't want to go crazy.
We're starting late, about an hour. Okay, so this is the Board of Selectmen's meeting for July 7th, Monday evening. We've been meeting in executive session, and I will now entertain a motion to recess the Board of Selectmen's meeting to attend the DPW Public Forum on the Water and Sewer Master Plan.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. So our plan is to turn the table and the meeting over to Joe Lynch, our DPW director, who will conduct his public forum, and we will then be reconvening in a meeting after that. Approximately an hour from now is our best estimate. Thank you, Joe. The table is yours.
Milton is in the process of completing its 10-year master plan for the water system, and that master plan has taken on two separate tasks, if you will, major tasks. One was looking at the hydraulics and infrastructure of how the system operates and how it reliably delivers water, and the second piece was looking at the financials and the capital planning and how it is you would enter into debt obligations on a recurring basis in order to support the physical needs of that system, yet without breaking the bank when it came to ratepayers. This part of the meeting, this meeting tonight, it deals with the second part of that master plan, and that is to deal with the financial impacts. And one of the things the Board of Selectmen tasked me with through this master plan process was to conduct this public forum. Some folks in this room who I've known for years, this isn't news to them. They've voiced concerns in the past, and we've always sought out an opportunity when it made sense to sit and look at any wholesale rework of the rate structure that we have. When would that opportunity be best? And really no better opportunity than during a master plan. Things that are on the table right now are listening to the folks who pay their rates and try to digest them all into the context of what issues are important to the community and the ratepayers. But more importantly is then to come back and analyze what the various considerations that the selectmen may have as water and sewer commissioners, and understanding what those impacts would cause on all of the ratepayers, not just one particular target population perhaps. So this is the start of that process. The posting of this meeting allowed people who were able to come out to this meeting at night, but we also have left open a dedicated email address for people to also provide public comments, which will run through this Friday at 4:00 p.m. So we'll be able to hopefully gather a broad cross-section of concerns that ratepayers may have. And some of these things should be very constructive. Hearing that we pay too much for water is a given. We know that. There's a lot that goes into the reason why we pay what we do. But more importantly is to look at the structure of the rates, whether it's four-tier, whether it's flat fee, whether it's a uniform single tier for all ratepayers. I mean, all of those things certainly have merits. They also have demerits, and through this process, we're hoping to hear from you folks to be able to get our arms around that and make a reasonable recommendation. To my left is Toby Fetter. He's the Vice President of Woodard & Curran, consulting engineering firm, who has been endeavoring with our task of rate setting for 9 years now. This is the 9th year?
I think this is the 7th year, Joe.
7th year.
Yes.
And so they're very, very astute in the global world of looking at rates and what the regional impacts, what the regional approaches are from communities outside of Milton. But more important is they're very familiar with our own rate structure and with our own dynamic of how it is we bill out, how we read, and how we receive collections, and how we process them, and more importantly, how on a database system, look at each of the tiers and understand how our income is derived at various levels and what the impacts of those be. It's not. I try to oversimplify it. It's not simple by any means. Very complicated. So Toby has a brief PowerPoint presentation, sure, which, and I think the platform we want to use is to go through this first. He'll give you the background on what it is we have for rates and why they are and some of the history behind that. And then from there, we'll just dive right into open comments from the public. What I do ask is each party comes up to make their presentation or make their thoughts be known, just your name, your address, and if you represent a particular organization or a constituency, such as an apartment complex, just make that clear so our record is clear as well of where the source of comment's coming from. Okay?
Okay, so as Joe had indicated, my name is Toby Fetter. I'm a vice president. I lead the financial portion of our management consulting practice within the larger firm. So as Joe indicated, we've been doing this here in Milton for a number of years. There we are. Okay. So quick agenda. This will be a very quick presentation. What I just sort of want to help everyone understand is where we are, how we got to the place we are, and what the available options are from a rate setting perspective, just to sort of inform the discussion for everyone. So basically, leading right in, reviewing the town of Milton's overall historical revenue requirements. When we say revenue requirement, it basically means in order to break even on supplying water and sewer to the town residents, it's the amount of money that we need to raise through fees and charges, meaning rates and volumetric rates or any of the other options, in order to basically break even on providing this public service. The one thing that really people are not aware of oftentimes is the degree to which MWRA communities carry a very large cost over which they have absolutely no control. So within Milton, about 52% of your water budget every single year, basically it flows directly to the MWRA. It's an assessment that's given under the agreement that Milton entered into when they joined the MWRA many years ago. On the sewer side, it's much more. It's close to 70% of the overall sewer budget. Those dollars don't stay in Milton when you pay your bill. They flow directly through in the form of basically the assessment that's given into your quasi-enterprise fund, and there's really very little control over that. Now, on top of that, in the blue section, which is nominally Joe's budget, there's large sections of that which are also really not you can't do much with them. There are things like debt service on past capital construction projects. So the amount of flexibility within the budget is actually fairly small, and this isn't true just in Milton. This is true in virtually all MWRA communities because the MWRA assessments are so large in comparison to the amount of water that's being sold. So essentially, the town at the DPW level, they've been largely even funded on the portions of the budget that they do budget as opposed to being informed by the MWRA what they'll be paying this year. That's been about the last 4 or 5 years. That hasn't increased by more than a couple percentage points. The way that the MWRA generates the town of Milton's bill is a combination of two things. It's a combination of the town's served population, along with the amount of water you buy, but it's not the amount of water you buy on a gallon basis. It's the amount of water you buy as a percentage of the overall amount of water that the MWRA sells. And so the only ways that you can really attack your MWRA bill is to do things like going after water leaks, going after II, and both of those are to reduce your flow share percentage at the MWRA level. Joe and the DPW have been doing this over the past couple of years, and I think that really shows up when you look, for example, this year, the average MWRA community is getting a larger assessment by around 3% than last year. This year, Milton's assessment is at 0.7% increase. So I would say that the overarching, one of the things I want everyone to understand is there's a lot that we don't control, and the things we do control actually are being targeted. So that's the first piece. The second is the overview of the current rate structure. I may be telling you things you already know, but obviously for a number of years now you've had a 4-tier rate structure. It's called an increasing rate block, where you have a fairly low cost or reasonably low cost of water in the first tier, and then that escalates in the following tiers. That does a couple of things. It encourages conservation, but also one of the things that I've heard recurrently over the years is we need to be able to at least not provide relief, but maintain a lower cost of service for older folks who are on fixed incomes and that's by being in Tier 1 and giving them control. Now, the one thing you will notice, some of the, within the water industry.
Before you dive into that in detail, let me just offer to the public. From time to time, you're going to hear us refer to water or sewer or water and sewer. In reality, it's the same conversation. The rates use an inclining block four-tier system for both water and sewer. So if we trip up and say one or the other, what we really mean is your water rates and your sewer rates collectively.
I'm sorry, I should have made that clear. So basically, the one thing, we use some strange nomenclature in this industry called HCF. It's 100 cubic feet. 100 cubic feet is about 750 gallons. You get 6 of those as part of your minimum charge. That's the Tier 1 charge here every quarter. And then it increases on a percentage basis, not terribly rapidly on the water side, but it does jump up very significantly on the sewer side when you enter into Tier 2. And as I said, the rationale, as pointed out here in the bullets, is it allows low-volume users, people on fixed incomes, to have some control over the size of the bills. Since larger users, in truth, do increase the size of things, the infrastructure that needs to be put in and maintained, there is a very good rationale for why larger users pay a higher rate when they're using more water. And then the only other piece that I wanted to add into this is, since you do have, when you go from Tier 1 to Tier 2, a fairly large jump, the smaller that we make those jumps between the tiers, the higher the Tier 1 cost of water will have to be. And the simple reason there is because Milton operates its water and sewer utilities on an enterprise basis, meaning we want to break even. You know, it is in many ways, it's a zero-sum game. If we don't generate revenue from one pot over here, it needs to be generated somewhere else. So those being the case, there's nothing we can do right now to magically make a portion of our cost of service, meaning the cost that Milton incurs in providing water and sewer to the residents, there's nothing we can do to really reduce that from current levels. So in the user balance, just so note.
And let me just kind of expound upon that statement. The other thing that's a little bit of a dynamic that people at home may not understand, or maybe you folks here don't understand, is that, and Toby made some reference to it, is that our assessment from the MWRA is based on a water assessment that they calculate one way and a sewer assessment that they calculate a second way. From the water perspective, they're actually billing us for water that we used January through December of the prior year. And on the sewer, it gets far more complicated. They're using the 3-year prior with wet weather flows and dry weather flows, and what they're really trying to do is penalize those communities who aren't aggressively going after their inflow and infiltration, which is measured mostly during groundwater or leaky periods. So they try to, and that's the wet weather flow basis. So that being said, is we're building our rate upon an assessment known from a year and a half ago. However, what we're forecasting for the following year, for the entire fiscal year coming up, is a projection of sales. So if in fact 18 months ago we had a very dry summer, very dry hot summer, and we sold a lot of water to people with irrigation systems who inevitably become Tier 4 users because they use a lot of water. Well, if we have a wet summer this summer, we're not selling as much water, and even though we made good faith projections on the sales, we could fail to meet our revenue requirement this year and would have to make it up next year. So there's this sliding dynamic that needs to be kept in the back of your mind as this conversation goes forward.
Absolutely, and especially as I understand the town is considering going to formal enterprise fund situation. That will, I wouldn't say complicate things, but what it will do is it will leave DOR, the Department of Revenue over in Boston, in a position that they will look at the books actually separately. Right now, DOR takes a look at Milton. They look at your overall costs, which include water and sewer. You account for them and you try and raise the revenue necessary. But if you're up or down a little bit in 1 year, it's not as large of an issue as if once you're a formal enterprise fund, it becomes a little bit more along the lines of where you get your certified free cash for the general fund. You're now going to also receive one for the sewer enterprise fund and the water enterprise fund. And if you have shortfalls, DOR will want to see you make up for those shortfalls in the following fiscal cycle by raising revenues a commensurate amount, so that they have quite a bit more say in things going forward. So just to make that clear. So in order, as Joe was saying, where we're basically trying to project what we're going to be selling in each of the different classes so that we can assign a cost to the volumetric rate in each of the classes, we have to have a decent projection of what we're going to sell in each of those tiers. And so what you see here on the top is water. I apologize. I guess I was assuming I might be projecting this onto the wall where it would be larger. But basically, those are the exact same chart for water and sewer, the 4 tiers going across from cyan to yellow to blue to red are tiers 1 through 4 sequentially. And what you can see is that really the preponderance of the water and sewer service sold here in Milton is really in the first 2 tiers. Now what you will notice is on the 4th tier, on the water side, you sell quite a bit more tier 4 water than you do sewer, and that is specifically because of what Joe was alluding to earlier. Irrigation meters are not billed for sewer, so when you sell a gallon of irrigation water, you don't receive a gallon worth of the sewage revenue that would be, used at, say, a normal residence. So, and that said, we have a very good data set that we've scrubbed over the years that I think we can make very strong projections with, back to 2007. So again, when we talk about setting rates, in order to project the revenue we can expect to raise, since you do need to make budget here, there's certain things that we can support from a data standpoint, meaning we can do a historical trend analysis on and try and give you a very good idea of what you're going to sell or not sell in the coming fiscal year. And there's certain things that we can't project upon. So basically, this is in comparison to your existing rate structure, the things that we can consider, I think with a high degree of confidence, that we could set good rates on is if we change the size of the tiers, either the upper or the lower limits. If we decide to make a base tier all the way up to, say, 10 HCF per quarter rather than the current 6. That sort of change we can make with confidence because we have algorithms in the database that can allow us to assess that in a real-time basis. We can also take a look at changing the relative cost of the tiers. So for example, in the slide earlier where we had for the 100 cents on the dollar in tier 1, for a gallon in tier 2 you pay about 121 cents. If we wanted to change those relative value of the tier cost of water and sewer, we could do that as well. And then also we have the probable ability to make some adjustments to the billing practices for multi-unit locations with 2 significant challenges there. The multi-unit properties within Milton are tracked by the assessing office, whereas the water records are in the water office. And the 2 sets, while we can make them work most of the way, we have quite a bit of work to do in order to have a perfect understanding of which multi-units go to which meters. And then the second piece is when we're talking of certain locations, especially the larger ones, we know exactly how many dwelling units there are in each location. But in many of the 2 and 3 and 4 families that we believe exist in certain portions of the town, we don't have an understanding of how many dwelling units are in each. So before we can go just making a recommendation that, well, we can adjust X or Y, we really need to understand and boil that down so we understand what we're really talking about if we're going to wholesale change a policy that's been in force for many years. So, and then progress to date, just to give you an update, Joe. We've uploaded all the past and current financials into the rate model. We have uploaded the consumption records from the past year. We've gotten all the data normalized. We could set rates using the existing methodology within a day. We have received and are working on the assessor's multi-unit database that will allow us to do the next level of assessment, which is if the town wants to consider adjusting multi-unit customers' bills based on the number of units or something similar to that. Once we finish this piece where we can basically line up the 2 databases, we'll be able to tell you what the fiscal impact of that will be as well. I would expect full model functionality in about 2 to 3 weeks, Joe. And that'll be in time for the next public hearing when we'll be able to, in real time, talk about, okay, well, if we do X and Y, what do the rates look like versus if we maintain the existing model. So
That's a great handoff, because I was about to say, when Toby speaks of we're ready to set rates now, what he's saying is the algorithms, the model that we have, the one that we've used over the past 6 years, going into the 7th year, we have the ability to now look at the water that we've used, make our projections of what we might sell. We know what the final MPEP assessments are. We know what our costs are approved at town meeting. So we have that ability to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. This is seasonal. This is the time of year that we do that. However, through this master plan process, we've committed to getting out there and asking folks what their impacts might be, what their concerns might be, and for us to be able to take that back, play with the model, so we could then give the Board of Selectmen, as Water and Sewer Commissioners, the information that they have in order to point us in the direction of which way they're leaning towards, and then we can then come back and make a final recommendation that they would vote at a future meeting. So I think there's 2 more meetings with the Board of Selectmen when that actually happens. First 2 meetings in August, or the last meeting in July and the first meeting in August, depending on how the calendar falls. So that being said, we're at a position now where I can invite people up to the microphone. Again, if they can just state your name clearly, and if I don't hear it clearly, because I'm hard of hearing, I'll ask you to repeat it, and your address, if you represent a particular entity, and then, of course, what your concerns are.
Okay. My name is Jerry Gaughan. I'm a resident at 88 Wharf Street, Milton Landing. I'm a trustee for the condominium association. I think our concerns are probably well known to everyone at the table, but just for the record, I'll review them quickly. We have a building with 73 individual residences, and they're all taxpayers, so we don't need to be lumped in with the nonprofits in town. Everyone pays a full property tax. I'm just going to use some very simple math to illustrate the problem.
Excuse me, sir. If you don't mind, just speak up a little bit. I'm having trouble hearing you in the back.
Okay,
that's all.
okay, I'm sorry. I thought the microphone would take care of it. But what I'd like to do is just go through some simple numbers to illustrate what we perceive to be the issue. We've all noted that there are 4 tiers, payment rates. And if we just lump the first 3 tiers, that's 6,000 cubic feet per water meter. And so if you live in a freestanding house and you're the only family there, you have the 1 water meter, you get 6,000 cubic feet of water at the lower rate. Everything above that is tier 4 higher rate. We have 73 families and 1 water meter. So each family, rather than getting 6,000 cubic feet, gets 82 cubic feet of water at those 3 lowest rates. Everything else is at the highest rate. So if we just use the 6,000 cubic feet, we're looking at something on the order of 5,900 cubic feet at the highest rate, whereas the neighbor next door in the single-family house is paying nothing at the higher rate. It seems to me that given the power of computers to solve simple math problems, that this is a simple math problem. And I would see it as simply multiplying those 6,000 lower rate cubic feet in the however you choose to subdivide that, by 73. And that's at the point at which we should start paying the higher rate. When one looks at likely scenarios, and these are just things I've pulled off the internet, but it appears that at least in some communities, they estimate that an average family, an average per person water consumption per day is about 150 cubic feet, not cubic feet, 150 gallons. So assuming 300 gallons per domicile per period of time, the cost to our community, each family in our community, is substantially more than the cost to a family living in a single-family house elsewhere in the community. So it seems to me that if there's a will to correct this inequity, it should be relatively easy to address it. I realize that if we're paying less, then everybody else in town is paying slightly more, but the degree of disconnect is much smaller if you have, 20-plus thousand people around town paying a very small incremental rate, as opposed to when you're asking each of these 73 families to pick up the slack. Each of us is actually, paying out significant dollars in order to subsidize the rest of the town.
So are you asking for a lower tier or
I think
73 meters?
However you, well, we could get 73 meters. I think the law reads that the town would have to pay for the meters, we would have to pay to install them. So right off the bat, it seems to me that the town's out some money, upfront money, and we're out some upfront money, plus the chaos involved in putting in 73 meters would be unpleasant. However, it would certainly pay for itself over time. I think an easier way to do it would be to just adjust the the tiers such that if you have 73 families, 73 taxpayers, individual taxpayers on a on the 1 meter, then the lower tiers should be multiplied by 73, so that each family is getting the same amount of low-cost water as every other family in town. And that strikes me as being very straightforward math that, you could train a computer.
Don't want to oversimplify it. It's, what I think I just heard you say is that you take your total consumption out of the single meter, divide it by 73, and come up with an equivalency
Right.
of gallons per unit, and then whatever tier that, then apply that tier uniformly at the higher total gallonage,
Yeah.
which just makes the math simpler.
Yeah, most of, many of the residents in our building are only there part of the year. Most of the units are either 1 or 2 people. There's certainly a few units where there are families with children and so forth, and they would use more. But my guess is that if you looked at the consumption of those 73 units on average, it's probably substantially less than the rest of the town. So if we're going to be talking about water conservation and so forth, well, I suspect that we're a very efficient building in terms of amount of water per living unit. So, yeah, I mean, getting back to the question of how should it be addressed. So I'm only speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for the community. I am a trustee, but it just, logic tells me that there's a simple way to do this with mathematics without adding 72 additional water meters.
Yeah, and I think that from the legality perspective, and I didn't get the citation, and I'm not even sure of what the citation might be, but, who shares the cost of the meeting? I think the reality is a mechanical burden, literally. There's a physical burden and disruption to the community, to your community. And 3, there's the recurring issue of multiple meters, multiple readings, multiple accounts, and multiple bills, and collecting them within a condo environment is very complicated. Moreover, is the issue, I think, that with regards to setting a policy and setting guidelines and standards within the town, it is the purview of the Water and Sewer Commissioners to set that policy of how the meters are configured. And the truth be told, in a larger community facility like yours, where you've got multiple units, control of internal plumbing, once that water is metered, is impossible for the town to be able to maintain. So my recommendation to the selectmen, should it ever get to that, is we would look at the first presentation that you made, the first recommendation, and that being, let's consider some equity in the rate structure as opposed to physically, mechanically replumbing the place. That would be impossible.
If I could just respond to, we have discussed this a number of times in selectmen's meetings, and I mean, if it were just the one building, it would be very simple, but I think our charge to Joe was, well, we agree that it's in inequity, but it also is for, someone Quistit Brook is single metered, Fuller Village. To take a look at everybody that might be in a similar situation, and then, well, as you brought up, what about the 2-family in and three-family houses that are
Well, I
you
mean,
know, so it just starts mushrooming.
I
That's the
appreciate
problem.
that that's a challenge, but it seems to me that eventually the town should be able to sort out which buildings are two-family, three-family, four-family, and what is also key is there's a single water meter. If you have a, three-family and there's 3 water meters, there's no problem.
Correct.
Right. But the fact that you can't solve the problem for, a two-family over in East Milton shouldn't affect how you deal with Milton Landing, where you have 73 units. You know there are 73 because you get taxes from all 73 each year. And there's no reason not to put in place a change in the calculation that would eliminate the inequity. And I'm a physician by trade, but I know enough mathematics to know that this is not complicated mathematics.
Now, the 73 units, that includes the restaurant.
They're on a separate meter.
They are already metered separately.
Right.
I want to be clear on that.
There's 4 meters that enter the 88 Fourth Street
So
complex.
as you envision this discussion is if we were to consider total consumption divided by the residential units and came up with an equivalency of tier and it's issued a single bill, it would still be issued to the condo association. And your
Yeah.
budget would just simply be that much lower because
Right.
it would be at a lower tier. That's how you
Well,
envision
not
it?
all of it,
Not all of it.
right. I mean,
there's-
what would happen is you would have incremental downward shift in much of the consumption from Tier 4 to 3 and 3 to 2 and so on by the expansion of the
I mean-
multiple of your tier sizes.
Just to give you an idea, we've all agreed that the 3 lower tiers amounts to 6,000 cubic feet of water.
Yes,
Okay, so if you multiply 6,000 times 73, it's 438,000.
right. And You're
What I'm
getting
saying is,
bills
what
for,
I'm saying is the first 438,000 for our building should be at the lower rates. Now, some of it would be at the lowest rate, some of it the middle rate, and then the
Some of
third
the
rate.
third,
And that would leave us, I suspect, with very little water at the top tier.
in the top tier,
Um,
yeah.
Whereas right now, virtually everything we buy is top tier.
Right.
And therefore, we're paying, it depends how I do the numbers and what assumptions I make, but we're paying somewhere in the order of 15, 20% more than we should be. You guys probably know exactly what we're paying.
Actually, not yet, but I will.
Yeah,
But I guess as selectmen, we wanted to know what the impact was on the rate
Right.
if we were to do this fairly for all multi-unit, because you've got Milton Hill House and it's a
36
Fuller,
Central,
36
Equity
Central.
House.
36 Central on 1 meter?
So it's more than just looking at 88 Wharf, although I think we all agree it is an inequity.
I mean, what it means with 73 families paying the burden, we're talking realistically hundreds of dollars per year per family. If you spread it out around the town, even pulling in some of the other big developments.
Right, we just want to see the
Then you're
numbers.
talking dollars, maybe $10 on a ratepayer elsewhere in town, where for us, it's hundreds of dollars each year.
Yeah, I will step in. The one thing that I've told Joe before, and you may have heard this through him, as the utilities financial consultant, my concern isn't fixing inequity for one person. It's when I have a list 1,000 properties long that are listed as multifamily and understanding the scale of what we're looking at if we do a policy change. I just want to be able to advise Joe on what the likely impact is to his organization, because if they were to change the existing policy, then by right, virtually anyone with a multi-EDU building would be coming in to have their bill adjusted. And this isn't me suggesting that it's not going to happen, or it is, but it does, because of the billing software currently in use, the idea of,
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me a simple way of doing it is not taking anyone's word for it, but if you have a building where there are multiple taxpayers, multiple folks paying Milton property taxes, then they should qualify for the lower rate. And, certainly our building, everyone is, there's 73 units, there's 73 property taxes that are paid, and they're, substantial.
So that comment addresses the smaller condos duplexes
Right,
and
it would-
triplexes. It doesn't address the multifamily owner-occupied to rental units, because they only
Well,
get a
then-
single tax bill, single entity.
Then, that, you know, for that person, the solution might be to add another water meter. You know, for us, adding 73 water meters, it would be, you know, at best, it would be very disruptive, and it's certainly not the solution. It wouldn't be my first solution, although I think there are people in the building who would say, well, if we can't do anything else, that's what we should do.
Dr. Gahn, I think we've got, and I'm not trying to cut you
No,
short.
that's
I think we've
fine.
got a really good understanding of your issue. It doesn't differ at all from Gene
Right.
Sullivan's,
I'm
my
sure you're going to hear,
conversation
there are
4
other
years
people here from 88 Wharf.
Are there others from 88? Is there somebody, actually, before we go to others from 88 Wharf, if we could have, open it up to someone else who wishes to be heard, and then I'll come back to you folks. Is there anybody else who wishes to be heard on the rate issue, or is it an audience of 88 Wharf? Gene, I'm awful sorry. It's your seat.
It's a long time, Joe. I first raised this issue
I think I saw you
in
last week.
2011. On the difference, Milton Hill House is an apartment house. It's not, they get one tax bill. And by state law, commercial people, apartment houses, 2-family, 3-family, they can sub-meter by law. And also by law, the electric company, if I was a commercial building, I'd pay one rate versus a homeowner. And by law, the common area electric usage in a condo has to be charged at the residential rate. So I kind of with Jerry, I don't think, and the town has a crazy, not everybody's treated equally in the town. Quistit Brook, townhouses, single-family meters. There were 2 families, I've talked to real estate agents, 2 families in the town that were converted to condos, have separate meters. So we're getting whacked on this tiered structure. I'll be looking to put the meters in. And then everybody's treated equal. I mean, we only have in our building right now, I think probably 35 single, 35 with 2 people, and 3 with 3 or more people. And so as Jerry pointed out, our usage is extremely low. In fact, we got a couple of people that show up 2 weeks a year in the building. I don't think condos were never dreamed of. I mean, it was easy for the developer at that time not to put separate meters in because it was cheaper for him, cheaper for the town.
Separate meters, just from a water system perspective, would probably be not feasible, because the building probably wasn't plumbed with 73 separate lines off the street.
No, but you get separate lines off the floor. I've had the plumber come in and say,
Which
Well-
line goes to you?
yeah,
Yeah.
he knows exactly which line comes into me.
I've seen a lot of
Yeah.
mix-ups there. I'm not counteracting anything you've said. I
No.
definitely understand the equity question.
It's a very simple plumbing thing to throw a separate meter in.
Okay?
Everybody's got a utility room, there's plenty of space. Easily identified line. So, you know how much water flows from the central meter? That number should match everything else coming out in the building. That's just, Joe's looking at 73 bills and 73 collections, and I think we're subsidizing the town. A lot of, probably the average ratepayer in the town, we're subsidizing 8,000 people by $3 to $4 a year.
We do understand the various alternatives that exist within your building, and to better understand how that reverberates to the town is something we have to task ourselves with.
Yeah, and I think,
Getting our arms around.
in Fuller, I think they get tax breaks from the town. I'm not sure whether Fuller's, no?
Nope.
No,
They're the highest taxpayer in the town.
okay, I didn't understand that. But Unquity House is an apartment house, not a commercial taxpayer. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Very good.
Thank you,
Thank
Joe.
you, Mr. Sullivan. Anybody else? 88 Wharf or otherwise?
Brad Woods, 88 Wharf Street.
Sorry, Brad Woods?
Woods, yeah. And I just want to thank Dr. Jerry Gorn for being not only here to testify, but also to be our president of our association. Dr. Gorn was the president of the county medical staff, and he's just one example of the many talented people we have in our building. Many of us are retired. We're active volunteers in the town. and fairly involved. And I do want to just emphasize what he has said, and that is we would like the town to treat us fairly, because we think we have an anomaly here, in that when the builder built the place, he didn't give us individual meters. And we understand conservation. A new rate was put in the purpose to conserve water. But no matter what the rate is, there's no more water. That we can't be more conservative than we are. There are over 70 units, residential units in our building, and the average household is probably a single lady, retired, who has probably a home, a retirement or a vacation home somewhere else. So the average, as Jerry gave you the figures, the average usage per household is way below the average usage of a normal home in Milton. So no matter how much you skew the rate in the interest of conservation, there's no more, we can't conserve any more water, because we don't use that much water. So, we would ask for a fair rate. And what Jerry has proposed sounds very fair to me. The problem is, when the builder built the place, he didn't put in individual meters. And then about 3 years ago, you folks brought in this new rate tier, which makes sense. The purpose is to conserve. We all agree with that. We're all greenies in the building. And, but it's because of this peculiar situation, it's not working. So, I guess the other thing I'd back up and say, I really appreciate the political process in Milton. I know Kathy came out and addressed our board a while back, and I'm impressed with this public hearing. You guys are really listening. I appreciate it. I also appreciate your obvious skills in doing your jobs. You know what you're doing. So we would just appeal for fairness here. And I know the talent around this table will allow you guys to come up with some equitable solution. Thank you.
Anybody else who'd like to have an opportunity to be
I
heard?
live in 88-4, but I think
It's been said. And, sir, Mr. Mason. I know Mr. Mason is not a resident, though I'm sure one day he would like to be.
No, out of my price tag.
Spoke out of turn, as usual.
Yep.
Sorry. Mr. Mason, please give us your address.
Okay, naturally, you hear all kinds of rumors when something like this starts. So some of my neighbors, myself, have pools or irrigation systems. And of course, you're hearing the rumors that they're going to eliminate that we're going to pay sewer on that, which we're not in favor of, obviously, because we've taken on the expense of having our houses replumbed and separate meters to fulfill our obligation with the town. So if that process was in thought, we would be against it.
Let me stick my neck out with all 3 members of the Board of Selectmen in the room. I don't believe we ever considered gating a second meter for irrigation
I've never heard
uses,
that mentioned.
non-sewer uses, and that those meters that are in place for non-sewer uses will continue to only get a water bill and not a sewer bill. There's no motivation at all
Good.
in that direction.
Thank you.
For the record, that was Robert Mason. I kept calling him Mr. Mason, but it's
Yeah.
Bob Mason.
Quarry Lane.
Quarry Lane. Anybody else wish to be heard? I'll close this portion of the public input. For those listening at home, we've created an email address. It is wsrates@townofmilton.com. Those people who wish to send in separate comments can do so at that email address. That address will be monitored right up through the close of business this Friday. So those who were not able to come out tonight could still have their comments voiced to us for consideration. So that link is right on the town's website. You should be able to link right to it, and it'll bring you right to the email. And those will be compiled and included along with the comments raised this evening. I'd surrender the floor to the Board of Selectmen at this point if they wish to continue this hearing, if you want to get back to your...
Just one question I have, Joe. In terms of this whole master plan process, and when do you anticipate coming back to the Board of Selectmen with a suggestion of what we should do with tiers and rates and...
We have about 2 weeks' worth of work to parse out the assessors' data and match it out with the water billing system, water and sewer billing system. If we can get those to mesh pretty well, I think 2 weeks is ample. If it doesn't mesh well, we're going to be starting to make a little bit more expanded assumptions with regards to sales at certain levels in what types of classes.
Yep.
But I'm thinking that by the first meeting in August, which I don't have the dates in front of me this evening, first meeting in August, to come back with a recommendation to the board, and then come back the second meeting in August
Set rates.
with the recommendation of hearing your feedback at that meeting is to come back and set the rates.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's what we had mapped out.
Can you make the presentation available online?
Sure, yep, PowerPoint will be online as early as tomorrow. It's not copyrighted, is it? And if it is, didn't I pay for it?
Yes, you did. I'd be happy to email it to you this evening.
Very good. And similarly, the people from the press will email that to you as well directly, okay? Any other questions from the Board of Selectmen while we're all together? Otherwise, I'll let you get back to your business of the evening.
No, other than I can just say in terms of the multifamily, however we fix it, we are determined to try and make it equitable for all. The question is whether we do it across the board and what the impact there is. Even though it's not a requirement for the rental units, I mean, it does impact the rents that people pay because it's an expense of a rental unit. And I mean, they're all residents of the town, and whether they're a taxpayer directly or indirectly, it still indirectly impacts everything. So it's just a matter of fairness, I think, and trying to figure out what that is.
Very good. Well, thank you this evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening, what's left of it. And
Okay, so we're back in session for our regular meeting. And the first item on our agenda is to confirm our future meeting dates. We have a meeting scheduled for Monday, July 21st. Mrs. Rizzi has asked us if we want to confirm any August dates, and she's suggested August 5th and 12th.
I think I'm fine with that. I'm not back until August the 8th.
August the 8th?
Yeah. I'm gone from the 27th to the 8th.
Tom, what about your August schedule? Are you away in August? I will be here, so I'm...
pretty sure I'm here.
Can we do the 12th, which is a Tuesday night?
Yes, I can do the 12th.
And then,
12th is good.
12th
12th
and
and
19th.
26th? Is that,
The one, the 12th and 19th.
I can do either one, the 19th or the 26th. Oh,
I will be away from the 20th through the 29th.
So why don't we do the
the
19th?
19th.
Yeah.
12th and 19th, okay.
Okay, so our next dates are Monday, July 21st, and then August 12th and August 19th. Next item is payroll and vendor warrants. Do we have any?
I'll move approval of the, do we have them? We have them, right? Move approval of the payroll and vendor warrants.
Second?
Any discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
unanimous. Okay, citizen speak. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board at citizen speak? No? Okay, then seeing none. The next item is a 0 Central Avenue discussion, which we met earlier this evening in executive session, and all I can really give is similar to last week, is just a brief summary of where we're at, and hopefully the public will understand that this impact strategy with respect to real estate, and that's the reason it's being discussed in executive session. So during executive session, the board voted to file special legislation seeking authorization to convey the town-owned land at 0 Central Avenue for a fair value as determined by the Board of Selectmen, and without being required to follow the procedures required by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30B, Section 16. And the filing of the legislation would be subject to resolution of certain legal and procedural issues. Senator Brian Joyce will be assisting us in this process as we go along. And that's all I can report for tonight on behalf of the board as to what we're going to do and what our next step will be. So unless there's any further discussion, we will then go on to number 8 on our agenda, which is a motion for a permanent lit sign at 480 Adams Street. I am going to, out of an abundance of caution, recuse myself on this issue. I just haven't had time to do some further checking on this one since it showed up on our agenda over the weekend. So I will turn the meeting over to Dennis, who is the vice chair of the board.
Okay.
And I will step outside.
Let me step back. Good evening.
Nice to meet you, Bill.
Hello. If you could state your name and address.
I am Paul DeSantis from Back Bay Sign in Medford, Mass.
And Scott Thiemann, Executive Vice President, Blue Hills Bank.
Great. So you have I understand you're going into 480 Adams Street. And you've been in front of the sign review committee,
Yes, we have.
and they approved it.
Correct.
Do we have it here, Anne Marie?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, I see it. Do you know what the feedback from the sign review committee was?
Yes,
They
the sign
approved,
review approved.
Understand, yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if they had any feedback per se.
Yeah, I mean, it's a generic sign anyway. You have it in all your banks.
Correct.
Well, we're talking about what, 3 signs or 4 signs? 4 signs.
Four lit signs.
Yep.
There's one on the top of the building in the back. There'll be halo letters.
Do we have artists rendering of it?
I have it ready, I can pass these out to you.
Great.
Sorry, I only have about 2 sets.
That's okay.
And for those of you who don't have, I have 8.5 by 11s that are handouts, so we are prepared.
Thank you.
Dennis, take the big one.
Okay, so the first one is,
And I said
It's
the
right over the
halo,
entrance.
if you go to the second to last page, it's just like that one. Those are halo letters, top of the page, at the top of the building in the back. You'd be on the other side of the highway in order to see those.
okay. So this is over the highway.
That's the highway between that one right there, yes. And you see the kiosk down to the left?
Yep.
Yep.
That's the ATM. That's all behind the
The
building.
back of the building, so
If
the
you
90,
look at the,
it's,
yeah, the very first page
hanging
of
over
all of what
93,
you
basically.
have is the site plan.
There's a floor plan on the first page that shows the sign locations.
Okay.
You'll see there's parking along the back of the building.
okay, yep.
If you're looking at it so that
So I can
480
see,
Adams
yeah,
Street,
so
the
there's
middle
the
of the building
ATM,
is
yep.
upside down. Be on the other side. of the
Can you
expressway.
see this from the highway?
Yes. Not southbound.
Yep.
You might see it northbound if you were stopped. It's not overly, it's not going to make you turn and look at it at night. If you're stopped in traffic, you may see it. You won't see it if you're in southbound traffic. Northbound in the morning,
Yeah, that makes sense.
maybe.
Nice to handle that as that.
You won't see the kiosk for the ATM machine.
Okay, and we're not talking about any freestanding signs, so these are all mounted signs?
Yes.
How will they be lit?
They're internally illuminated LED cabinets. The blue is going to be opaque and the white will be translucent to white graphics.
Those letters would be similar to Extra Space Storage down on Adams Street. That's a halo that's, where you see the individual letters.
Yep.
Yep.
That's what it is.
And is there a timer on these lights, or?
I
do they
believe
turn
that's,
off at
yeah,
night?
they will be put on timers. They may trigger on with photocells.
Yep.
So like on a dark overcast day or on a 3 o'clock on a winter day, at least the signage can go on, but a timer would shut them down at the end of the day based on what the city's recommendations are for what time you want the signs off.
But they would be turned off at night, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can ask if they be turned off.
Yeah.
After business hours, yeah.
Yes.
But what did we put sleepies on? Was it 11 or something?
11.
It was 11, yeah. I think so.
All right, so for consistency's sake, then 11 PM would be,
If we could just verify that, if it was 10:30 or 11.
Tell me when you want them, and that's when they can come off.
Because we would get phone calls.
yeah,
You
no,
know.
and we understand that.
Yeah, yeah.
Example, Town of Normal has a similar restriction,
Yeah.
and I believe it's that same hour possibly.
Okay, so A4 is right there.
It's a classy sign, I think it suits the building. And
Yeah, they're doing it nice too. They're recessing them into the frame of the building, so it's not a protruding sign up there. So they're really being built within the structure.
I'm trying to see where on page, on the diagram where A5 is.
Air one?
A5,
A5?
yeah.
Okay.
I see A4.
Yeah, if,
Oh, I see, okay. So here.
Halo lit letters, okay.
So this is still building all the way out here? I guess I'm confused as to,
No.
that's the edge of the parking lot, the expressway there.
so,
It's the back side of the building.
yes, okay. So it's going to be mounted right about here? Is that what we're saying?
Actually, no. It would actually be on the building.
Yes.
Let's get it upside down. Turn it upside down.
A5 is right
This
there.
is the viewing angle of it, so it would be, when you're here, it'd be the viewing angle.
Oh, okay, okay. So it's right here
Yeah,
then?
in that area, correct.
Okay. All right. And what's on the other side of the expressway from there?
Personalized fitness.
Is it?
Fitness Unlimited, sorry. Oops.
Okay.
Name change on it?
All right, so it really isn't hitting any residential
No.
neighborhood? Okay. All right.
Right.
The other two lit ones are on Adams Street, right above the door. And it's because the door comes at a 90-degree. One of them faces Adams Street, one of them faces Wood Road Extension, which is Wood Road as it comes over the highway.
Highway, so there's nothing
That's
there,
the fork.
obviously. Yeah.
So if you're coming from St. Agatha's, you'd see it. You'd see the Wood Road Extension
Yep.
sign.
Mhm.
That's three. The fourth lit one is the kiosk for the ATM.
This one?
That's the door coming from,
What is
you're,
this?
you're coming from St. Agatha's going at it, yes. And the letters are lit, the blue is opaque.
And it's the same with that one you have there over the ATM. Blue opaque.
The panels themselves will be opaque, the letters come shining through.
Okay, and the variances off of our sign bylaw, this is more signage than we normally permit on a, in terms of numbers of signs.
One, it's more than we usually have, and two, they're lit.
Right.
Because they're lit in a residential area. This building is actually zoned residential. There's variances that allow this use in this area.
Right, right. But we're saying that it really won't be shining on any residential building that we can.
There's more to call public safety, that why someone would be going in there. You're announcing that it's a bank, and it being lit, it's going to light up if somebody is near that door. You're not looking to light up the whole area, but at the same time, you're not trying to make them walk up in the dark either.
Is Blue Hills Bank going to be the only tenant of that building now?
No,
There'll be other tenants?
no, there's several other.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
The door, if you're looking at the site plan, you'll see that where it says bank entry, just to the left of that is the old entry.
Okay, yep,
In
yep.
front of the old entry to the left is now going to be an elevator shaft. So they're building an elevator shaft
Okay.
in there, so the building will now be ADA
Elevator.
compliant.
Okay, yep.
There is no elevator in there presently.
Now signage for those other businesses, I'll be just on a directory or?
They're on the directory out front in the front left and then inside the building.
Okay. Okay. I'm fine with it.
Directory is not lit. The sign telling you where the kiosk is not lit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just directional in the parking lot.
Is there a motion?
Probably is.
Number 6.
Okay, so I'll propose a motion to approve the lit signage request for Blue Hills Bank as recommended by the sign review committee.
I'll second that. Any further comment?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Well, we have one refusal.
And for
Thank you.
clarification's sake, in regard to the 11 PM component, who would we check back? Would that be Bill?
I would check with Bill, yeah?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Whatever Sleepy's is on, I would do the same thing.
I would think so,
I think
yeah.
it's 10:30 or 11.
It's one, yeah.
It's no later than 11 anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
So the next step is we get a letter of this decision, and that's what we submit for our permit application.
Yes.
Bill knows all about it. He's
Perfect.
He's
Fantastic.
Yep.
Got the right guy sitting beside me there.
Great. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bring in Katie back.
See ya.
Hi, Bill. We're on number 7 now, Katie.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. And Tom? Okay, so number 7 on our agenda is a proposed motion regarding a DPW seasonal employee.
I'll move to approve temporary seasonal appointment of Brandon Flaherty, 30 Martin Road, to the Department of Public Works, contingent upon the approval by the Personnel Board.
Second.
Any discussion? And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Numbers 8, 9, 10, and 11 are contracts with various unions.
Yes.
The town administrator will give us a report on each of them. Anne Marie, would it make sense to, what's your preference? Do you want to go through all of them at once, and then or do you want to take them each?
Why don't we do them each
individually?
individually? Be easier for you to understand each contract separately.
Okay. So the
So the
first
first
one is Milton Public Employees Association.
Yes, Madam Chair. So the Milton Public Employees Association contract is a 3-year contract. It's a wage adjustment of a 202. It's a 2% in 14, a 0 in 15, and a 2% in 16. It's, but in the second year, fiscal year 15, there is a new step. There was some minor housekeeping language, just to clear up some, they had some old departments that are no longer in existence, like wire department, town office building department, so we did some language cleanup as well. And we included the central business, the consolidated facilities department now. We did get some great benefit reductions that I think the board will be pleased with. We eliminated for new employees. This is just for new employees, only effective July 1, 2014. The elimination of sick leave buyback, a reduction in sick time accrual, and a change in the clothing allowance is for all employees. The procedure was in the past to have a voucher system, but now because there are now females in that union, and they had, and some people had issues with the store that they were buying their uniforms from, we've now gone to just a straight pay system. So they'll just get the check, and then they are responsible to buy the, purchase the clothing.
So I think, Madam Chairperson, it should be stressed that the importance of the sick leave elimination for new employees, that we will see the rewards of this in a number of years. It's not an immediate. It's a fantastic negotiation that you did with these unions in eliminating that for new employees going forward.
Yeah, for those people that might be listening out there, I'm not sure everybody understands what sick leave buyback is, but essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in the town of Milton, depending on what union, you can accumulate
You accrue your sick
time unlimited.
Unlimited.
So it just builds up and up and up. When you hit retirement age, under most previous contracts, you have the ability to collect some of that unused sick time with a single payout at retirement. And each one of those calculations were different depending upon the union, but it could amount to, tens of thousands of dollars per employee, depending upon how much sick leave they had accumulated and what the rate of.
And the number of years that they worked for the town of Milton, absolutely.
So, so on a go-forward basis, this will eliminate, and it really is. It's a budget buster in the year that it hits if it's a long-time employee and a small budget. That it could be double their budget in some cases, depending upon.
Right. We got to go searching for that money.
That's right.
Yes.
So
yes. And it's an unfunded liability as well. So again, while you may not see an immediate savings with these contracts, you will see long-term savings with these benefit reductions that we've made.
And at the same time, we have held the pay increases, the wage adjustments to nominal cost of living adjustments that hopefully help, in terms of those tight budgets that we do have.
Yeah, I agree. It is a long-term benefit for the town to have this sick leave buyback elimination. So,
I'll make a motion.
as everyone has said, we won't see it right away, but over the long run, this will make a difference in future years for future warrant committees and others.
Yeah, the return on this investment is long-term.
Yep.
So.
Now, do we get any concessions in terms of future employees, in terms of personal days or any of the other things?
You got the reduction in sick time accrual.
Sick time accrual, okay.
Currently, an employee here from 6 months to 5 years gets 12 days. After 5 years, they get 18 days a year. We've reduced that to, from 6 months to 5 years, 5 days. From 5 years through 10 years, 7 days, and 10 years or more, 10 days.
Okay.
And they can only accrue, different unions, again, are able to accrue different amounts. This union, again, I believe it was 100 days that they're able to accrue. But when they retire,
they
do not get any. That's correct.
Okay. And MEPR is the
Milton,
DPW?
Milton Public Employees Association. It's DPW, Park, Cemetery, and Consolidated Facilities.
So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve a contract between the town and the Milton Public Employees Association for the period of July 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Any further discussion? And if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Number 9 is the Milton Professional Management Association.
Yes, Madam Chair. Again, another 3-year deal, fiscal year 14, 15, and 16. Wages are 2% for 14, a 0 for 15, and a 2% for 16. And they will have an additional step in the fiscal year 15. For new hires, again, effective July 1st, 2014, there'll be a reduction in sick time accrual. And just as I outlined previously, it will be 6 months to 5 years, 5 days, 5 years to 10 years, 7 days, and after 10 years, 10 days. And theirs is capped at 75 days. And again, when they retire, they just lose those days.
And the sick leave buyback?
And for new employees, effective July 1st, 2014, elimination of sick leave buyback. For new employees hired after July 1st, 2014, a cap on personal days, a reduction to only 3 guaranteed personal days a year. And for new employees, July 1st, 2014, a cap on longevity of $5,000. They also added to that managers union the new assistant town planner position and the electrician position. And that's it.
I think if you wouldn't mind, Anne Marie, for maybe the next meeting, just inform the public of what the average payout for sick leave buyback has been for the last 5 years. Just to give us an example of what we are paying out.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that.
I know you might get some people retiring, more people retiring in a year than another year, but give us the average anyway, at least.
Absolutely.
But again, a good job with that, I believe, in eliminating that.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve a contract between the town of Milton and the Milton Professional Management Association for the period from July 1, 2013 through June 30, 2016.
Second.
No further discussion? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Number 10 is the Milton Patrol Officers Association contract.
Again, Madam Chair, another 3-year contract, fiscal year 14, 15, and 16. Fiscal year 14 is a 2%, fiscal year 15 is a 2%, fiscal year 16 is a 1% on July 1st, and a 1% on January 1st, with a 1% step in year 10. Minimal increases in their night differential and weekend differential, and they now have the ability to take vacation days in half-day blocks. They work 8-hour days, so they can take a 4-hour vacation day, but it has to be either the first 4 hours of the shift or the last 4 hours of the shift. Again, effective 7/1/2014, new employees will not be eligible for sick leave buyback, and the town now has the ability to, there'll be a new article added to the contract that the town has the ability to put GPS in the cruisers going forward, which is a great tool for the department to have
For deployment purposes.
for deployment purposes, absolutely.
Good.
Make a motion to approve a contract between the town and the Milton Patrol Officers Association for the period of July 1, 2013 through June 30th, 2016.
Second?
If no discussion, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. And finally, the Milton Superior Officers Association.
Yes, Madam Chair. Another 3-year contract, fiscal year 14, 15, 16. The wages are fiscal year 14 at 2%, fiscal year 15 at 2%, fiscal year 16 is 0, but effective 7/1/15, a 3% step in the 15th year. A minimal bump up in night differential and weekend differential. Again, the same vacation, half-day vacation block, either in the first half of the shift or the last half of the shift. Effective 7/1/2014, new employees will not be eligible for sick leave buyback. We also have in the Superior Officers Union the ability to put the GPS in the patrol cars, and there was a minor change to Article 6, Section 8, which is if an employee works, it currently is if an employee works 20 minutes into the next hour, he gets that hour's pay. It's now reduced to 10 minutes. So if an employee works 10 minutes into the next hour, he gets the hour pay.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Can you, so the step for the superior officers is at 15 years?
You have to be with the town of Milton for 15 years.
You'll get a step in your base wage?
Year, yes.
Okay. And then the patrol officers is 10 years?
It's 10 years.
That's a 1%.
It is a 1%.
Step plus 1%?
It's a 1% step.
It's a 1% step, okay. All right, make a motion to approve a contract between the town and the Milton Superior Officers Association for the period of July 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Any discussion? And all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. That brings to 6 the number of contracts that have now settled and are in effect for the next 2 years, so
3 years.
3 years, but
14 is done, yes.
started July 1 of last year, so
Yes.
they are 3-year contracts, but 2 years from now, we'll be,
We'll
probably
be
a
back
year and a
at
half
it in
from now, you'll be
16
back
months,
at it.
yes.
But we had approved 2 previous ones at a prior meeting, so
Yes.
there's still one union that is out of contract, but I think on behalf of the board, I should congratulate the town administrator on all her efforts. Negotiating these
Big job.
contracts is a big job. It's, what do you sometimes have 4-hour meetings at a time with any given union, and they take place multiple times during the year, so it's been
That's the importance, too, of multi-year contracts, because otherwise you just turn around, you're doing it, you're just a constant negotiator, you get nothing else done.
Exactly.
You know, this has taken a large amount of the town administrator's time during the past year, so congratulations on all of these contracts and getting some good long-term benefit for the town that we won't see right away, but future boards, town administrators, warrant committees will realize that benefit, especially with the sick leave buyback elimination for new employees.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, the town administrator's report.
I don't have anything to report this evening, Madam Chair.
Chair's report, I did not have anything to report, but when I stepped outside being recused, I checked my mail, and we have a letter from President George H.W. Bush that it's very brief, I will read it. It's a letter acknowledging the birthday letter that we sent him, and he writes, "Dear friends, the letter you sent me on the occasion of my 90th birthday was most thoughtful. Thank you for those kind sentiments. I am very proud to be a son of Milton, and I hope one day I can take you up on your gracious invitation to visit. Thank you again for writing. All the best. Sincerely, George Bush." The reference to the son of Milton was a reference in our letter to him. So
That's good. Well,
so
it
that
wasn't a
was
generic
nice
letter.
that we know he read it and we have a response. But I have nothing
good.
else to report since last week on the chair's report.
Okay.
Citizen speak response. Do we have anything?
We didn't have any citizen speak tonight.
Last week was about the Henrys.
Henry's for the
Yes.
most part,
Yep.
so I think we said about as much as we can on that.
Okay, then if not, anything for the next meeting agenda items? We have been doing some follow-up on the few things that are on our to-do list to schedule, including a meeting with the Government Study Committee and
Yep.
some of the other things
Yeah.
that have been
Fire
suggested
service.
previously.
Yes.
Anything else to add?
Not sure if I'd like it added, but I would like to get an email, Anne-Marie, with the list of everything that we have going on at the moment. You remember we spoke about that?
Yep. Projects.
There's something like 40 items that we're in the midst of. I'd
There's
like-
always a growing list, it seems, of
Right.
new projects. And
Just where we are with each
Yes.
item that we don't discuss every night.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause
You just
some-
want that email to
Yeah,
you
sometimes
separately.
we forget about, and then
Well,
somebody
that's something
will.
we're trying to do as a matter of course anyway, so.
Mhm.
Yeah.
but-
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Now the contract negotiations are over, we should be able to get back.
Mm.
Your time will be freed up, right? There's nothing else on the agenda, so. Okay, then if not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. We're adjourned.